Hello. Today we'll talk about the parade of world leaders and the American hegemony on display. There's been a line of leaders from all over the world walking into Washington, D.C. and the White House and meeting the emperor, so to speak. So the US is no more the nice guy next door, no more a benevolent, smiling giant. For decades, the USA hid its hegemony behind the facade of the UN, using the UN and the IMF and the World Bank as a burqa, hiding its power and hegemony behind it, not revealing its cards, openly at least. But the people knew who was running the show, but it's like a hidden, a power behind the puppet. Now under President Trump, its power and hegemony is made evident, is bare, is naked. The emperor has clothes and the armor of tariffs and has the power to ruin opponents or bring them to heel. So, thus the parade of world leaders from kings, prime ministers, dictators, elected, unelected, and so on, the elites, has been evident. The whole world has been looking at it, and the parade seems to continue. Now, as Dr. Muqtader Khan, a professor from the East Coast, states, but the spectacle of world leaders making the pilgrimage to the Durbar, the court of President Trump, is telling. It started with Israel PM Benjamin Netanyahu, followed by King Abdullah of Jordan, then Shigeru Ishiba of Japan, the Prime Minister, and PM Narendra Modi from India, and President Macron, and PM Keir Starmer for the UK, and so on, not to mention many others in between, including Zelensky and Trudeau and the rest. Everyone was effusive about their personal equation with the president. Trump acting like a global emperor holding court, while leaders of other nations present themselves humbly in his court to pay tribute. Now that's a good observation, isn't it? Anyway, so the US is no more a nice guy. The US is like a Don whose ring the gangsters want to kiss. Like in Godfather, remember the series of movies on The Godfather? Be that as it may, EU is trying to push back against this totally naked US hegemony laid bare now. And the EU is hoping to challenge or at least collectively muster courage to stand up, at least symbolically, if not in real terms. For example, the US, against the US dictating the terms of how the Ukraine war should end, such as the negotiated settlement of the war in Ukraine, the US is driving its bus through without the EU participation. It's a fait accompli. So, a fait accompli from President Trump making a deal with, for example, Putin, cutting away the barriers of EU and everybody else who might object to it or want to say something about it. Finding a shortcut, so to speak, to end the war. Anyway, it seems like it's not anymore my way or the highway either. It's just my way or you will be ruined. You're going to be suffering because you didn't deal with me. Anyway, so the question is, what is the long-term impact? And what could it be for the long term for the US and other countries? No one can imagine various scenarios. Well, will countries form new blocs to trade more with each other and try to reduce the dependence on the USA? And will that work? Can you even reduce your dependence when the biggest market in the world is the USA? EU and India are desperately trying to form a free trade agreement now, after 20 years or so of discussions and haggling. Why now, you might ask? Will Canada join EU or try to reduce its dependence on the USA to some extent? And will that even work? You can hear just noises from Canada to say they're going to get close with EU and other countries. Well, let's see how that works out. Will the USA be able to develop consensus with other countries for the long-term projects, if any, that the USA wants to deal with? It's not likely anymore they'll find consensus or want consensus on some long-term projects. Will it make it possible for the countries to also display naked power projections, display overt bullying tactics, etc.? Yes, it's very likely that will happen, at least in their own spheres of influence, in their own region, so to speak. So China, for example, has imposed tariffs on Canadian agri products now, taken a hint from President Trump, and will indulge in such means to bring other countries to heel. So China's got a free rein now. You can't complain about the tariffs, I believe. There is a scenario that at the end of all these tariff wars, many industries will move back to the USA. That's a good scenario that they say it is possible. And other countries will suffer because of that move of industries back to the USA to some extent, it being a zero-sum game in some ways. This will be a good outcome for the USA, perhaps to the detriment of some of the countries. Now, we can see deglobalization happening, which means it's occurring now, which will give rise to many smaller centers of power in other places that will perhaps cooperate with each other. Now, even now in those small regions, such naked projections could become the norm in those regional power spheres. So, in short, to quote Dr. Muqtader Khan again, so far the system appears to be bending, the system as in the world system, appears to be bending to America under President Trump, rather than forcing it to bend to the norms of the global order that we've known so far. If the system is still unipolar, meaning the USA is the unipolar power of the world now, if the system is still unipolar, it didn't become so just because President Trump got elected. If that is true, then it behooves us to understand what unipolarity is all about and how it has evolved. A unipolar system exists if there is one global power, the USA, that enjoys primacy and capacity to unilaterally shape and reshape the global order. That's what we see happening, don't we? So for now, American hegemony continues unchallenged. And in the near term, that is likely to be the case. So it's going to be a lot of volatility in the world until things settle down. It could take even more than 5 years, maybe a decade for the new world order, the newer world order to emerge. So it's going to be very interesting times, as they say, but it's not going to be easy for some countries.